I'll tell you a story, and
Okay.
whether you want to put it in the podcast or not is up to you. So we did an episode of, we did a series of HTTP 203 like forever ago, and we filmed it out in California because we were there for Google I/O at the same time. And one of the first episodes we filmed, because for some reason we got a lot of budget and a crew that were, filmmakers at heart. They filmed one of the episodes up at like a wine place up a mountain thing near San Francisco, and most of the shot was just us sitting there waiting for the light to be right, because it just the cloud, they hit it. But because we just sat outside, and my skin, even though it was overcast, I got horrendously sunburned and didn't know, and I didn't notice until we got in the car for the on the drive back, and I felt the thing. I was like, oh, I know what this feeling is. Oh no, I know what happened here. And then within an hour, I was bright red. But this was the first day of a week of shooting. First day for a week. So I had an absolute panic. Like, I didn't sleep that night because every hour, I set my alarm every hour to then go and dip my head in the sink of cold water, because I thought, that's smart. That's something that's going to solve it.
Reduce the inflammation.
Did not solve it. So at like 4 a.m, I panicked and just like went onto YouTube, and I was like, right, what do I do? What makeup solves this? And there was this just really young girl kind of like going, I'm going to show you how to sort out sunburn. First thing you're going to do is you're going to moisturize. And I'm like, lady, I've been moisturizing all night. I don't know. But then she was like, and first we're going to apply the green makeup. And I was like, tell me all of your secrets, little girl.
Oh yes, the green makeup. Yes.
Is this? Yeah. And it sort of worked. You could tell from the I sort of look a little bit like Mr. Data in the next episode.
That's funny.
Absolute nightmare.
Oh, that's what the move is put more sunscreen on. It has zinc in it, and it cools the skin. I've been sunburned many times.
I have been applying after sun, and for this recording I put some matte makeup because I am a shiny boy. Like, I am a really shiny boy. Like at the best of times, if I put like after sun on, it looked like something's gone wrong with like a WebGL demo, right? The highlights are all sort of off. I look like a cue ball,
There's our intro. Scott, take it from there. I think that's a beautiful way to open this up.
Yes. Welcome to Syntax. Today we have Jake Archibald here, and we're going to be talking about web standards. We're going to be talking about Mozilla. We're going to be talking about Chrome, the Prompt API, and a whole lot more. I'm really stoked. Jake, I've been a fan of yours for a long time. I was a Sprite Cow user back in the day, so very familiar with your work forever and ever and ever. So if you don't know Jake, he has been around the industry, at the forefront of the industry for a very long time. And now he's at Mozilla. So Jake, do you want to give the audience who isn't familiar with you a little bit of background, and then now what you're doing at Mozilla?
Yeah, sure. I guess the short story, I started my career at the BBC. I was there for 4 years. And then I worked at a web agency for a year, a startup for a year. And then I went to Google, where I was a Chrome DevRel for a solid decade. And then I left there, and I was at Shopify for a couple of years. But then I guess the short story is I missed web standard stuff a lot. So I am now at Firefox doing the DevRel thing again. I guess in terms of like, what are the big hitters? I suppose like I did a lot of the work around service worker stuff, fetch, and then sort of more recently like view transitions and the linear easing thing in CSS where you can do like bounce easings and stuff.
Yes.
That was a kind of, and I knew I was I'm leaving Google soon, but I want one last thing. I want one last thing that I want in, and that was that. So
many of the things that I love and use, man, that linear API rips. Big fan.
So weird name, but it works.
Yes, weird name, but it works. So after a decade at Google, what's it like to leave Google? Because there was a time, the time before you were at Google and a time after. Yeah, so I've heard from other people who've worked at companies like that there's like almost trauma that you have to undo from working at these types of places. Is that what it feels like to you?
Yeah, the one thing I can't shake is I keep a meticulous work diary. So the way it would work at Google is you know Perth would come up, and this is where you kind of like every half a year or whatever it was had to sort of essentially sort of justify your reason for having the job still. And I could never remember anything. This thing would loom, and I would be like, I'm gonna get fired because I can think of one thing for the last 6 months or whatever. So I would always keep a diary, and then I end up going back through it and go, oh no, okay, I think I might just about get away with this, and I still keep that diary, even though
wow, yeah,
other jobs where he's like, you don't need to be doing this. It's like it's in me now.
That's not a bad idea though. Like you hit the end of the year and go like, what did I do this year?
What
and
did
then
I
you start
do?
kind of like going through and like, oh, I actually did quite a bit of stuff. I just forgot about all the stuff we shipped or all the projects we worked on.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
Exactly.
And if you want to see all of the errors in your application, you'll want to check out Sentry at sentry.io/syntax. You don't want a production application out there that, well, you have no visibility into in case something is blowing up and you might not even know it. So head on over to sentry.io/syntax. Again, we've been using this tool for a long time and it totally rules. All right.
But yeah, it's like, so the role I have now is same but different, I guess. Like it's DevRel with bits of standards work, which is exactly what I was doing at Google. But the things that are different is the number of people doing it, and the budget that we have. So that's
Let's talk about that. Like where is Mozilla? Where's Firefox at right now?
I don't know. That's a big question. I am still shocked by how quickly we move, given the resources, right? Like that's I'd say they, because it's not me implementing the features, and every time, because I do these little videos about new features, and it's like it's not often that we're last to ship, and given the relative budgets, it's not a browser owned by a billionaire, which the others are, or the others which have their own engine are. And that's the other thing is we're building our own engine here. A lot of the other browsers are using an engine from another, and so the amount that we're able to ship, given that sometimes we are last on features, but a lot of the time we're second or even first, and it's been wonderful to see that. I guess recently things like the sanitizer API, we were first to ship that. Heading offset just landed, which I would love to talk about. But then even sort of the things like the temporal API, we were first to that as well. So, but then we shipped style container queries recently, and we were last there. That's going to happen. We're a big part of this role compared to Google is finding the priorities, because I'm supposed to be the connection between developers and the browser engineers, and so different to when I was at Google, I'm on the hook a lot for trying to find out what we should be working on, what's going to annoy people the least, which order.
Yeah, that was my question. Is sometimes you see something just get shipped in, oh wow, that's in Firefox now, or a browser chooses to implement that early, and on the Safari side, you can often tell oh that's clearly something they needed internally, or they needed for a web view or something like that. What does Firefox use to figure out what to focus on and what to implement next?
It comes down to if we don't ship this, is it going to mean sites are broken in Firefox? And that's a kind of number one thing. And it's are people, does it mean that Google Meet is just not going to work, or something like that? Because that's the thing that causes users to switch away. So that's really number one priority. And then from there, it's things like what's the most bang for buck in terms of what we can give developers to make the web better.
It seems like Firefox is taking this all a little bit more seriously in the past year. Is that accurate, or are they just doing a better job of? Is it just doing a better job of communicating?
Mozilla about a year. So if you're saying that, then I'm going to put that on my little work diary.
I have no, you know what, it is funny because it felt like for so long as we've been doing this podcast that it's been a bit of a black hole. Like, what are they working on? When are they going to ship? What? Yeah.
It still is. It still is. And there are, like, we're throwing around ideas internally to kind of make our backlog clearer. But one of the things I did last year is I got a bit involved in the Interop project, and we shipped a little web form thing where it listed all of the things that were proposed for Interop, and there was like 150 of them, and let developers like pick as many as they want and rank them. And we used that to decide what we were going to push for, you know, in the meetings with the other browsers, and because that gave us a ranking of all of the features, which was great. But we are still using that as a, like, okay, there's a bunch of stuff that didn't make it Interop, but we've got this ranking that we can look at, and you know, developers have given us the information, so we can use that. Unfortunately, couldn't get agreement in the Interop group to publish the results, but you know, I could probably leak a bit of it. What do you think came top? So this went out like late last year, and so it was just
for 2026.
Yeah. Yeah, and we got people we used like an algorithm on the ranking, and like we got the thing that sort of most consistently in the algorithm sort of came out top.
Yeah, what because we covered Interop 2026. I don't know.
I'll give you a clue. The number one thing did not make it into Interop.
Did not make it into Interop. Okay,
No.
That's a great question, because I feel like I have such a different radar for what I want. I don't know, our timeline animation, scroll animations.
So that did make it into Interop.
It did
and that
make
was
it
number 7 in
Cool.
our the ranking.
Was it not haptics?
Haptics would be an interesting one.
No, well, in terms of the gamepad API, or like.
No, that was more like a navigator dot. What's the thing you can make the phone buzz?
Yes, they're right. That is an API. Yeah, do you know what? I don't think that was even on the list, but yeah, that is an API that is Chrome only. I think. No, okay. Number 1, temporal.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
By a long stretch. Maybe there was some recency bias there. I don't know. But what an interesting way I cut the data was like, okay, like what if we reduce the analysis down to people who made only really, because you could rank as many as you wanted, and it was like, if we make the groups really small, if we only look at people who ranked very small groups, like 4 or less, is there anything that seems to jump way up the list? Because I just wanted to be sure, is anyone trying to meddle with the data here?
Yeah, you know? Right, yeah.
Plotting web compat.
Yeah.
One thing jumps up when you do that, when you analyze that, and it is JPEG XL.
Oh,
yeah.
That's the
We
thing that
talked
people
about that
came out
here.
to, like, I'm going to put this top of my list and throw some other stuff in, just a couple of other items.
Can you tell us what JPEG XL is for the audience? Because I think it's kind of an exciting thing.
Yeah, it's a new image codec that is, I think, not as good as what we already have. Like, it has, I think it's really good at low compression. Like, I think it preserves detail if you're happy with high file sizes. In my opinion, people should be pushing compression more, and in those cases, JPEG XL doesn't do so well. But we have an implementation almost ready to land, and Chrome's working on it as well. The implementation's a Rust implementation, and that was kind of our requirement. Like, we kind of pushed them to say, like, all right, we'll support it as long as it's a memory safe implementation, and that was our requirement. JPEG XL has a really, like, it pushes. Okay, a lot of the image formats we have are kind of hand-me-downs from a video format, right? That's true for WebP. That's true for AVIF. Like WebP, it's VP8. It's a VP8 keyframe. AVIF is an AV1 keyframe. Whereas JPEG XL is an image format, which is great. And one of the things we get through that is progressive rendering, because progressive rendering doesn't matter for a video format, right? So it can sort of like give you a less detailed version of the image, and it will sort of come in progressively
As it's being downloaded from the server?
as it's being downloaded from the server. But it's kind of like every few bytes you get, it will kind of give you like a new square of the image and that kind of thing. But the AVIF folks have started to figure out progressive rendering as well, and they are doing it in a video way, which is like they're leaning on their video roots, which I think is really interesting. So you provide the progressive passes as frames. So that means you can decide what those frames are. So you can provide an initial frame for your image, which is a low resolution blurry version. Like it doesn't have to be the same image.
Oh,
and then
okay.
So it'll use the whole sort of delta thing to then do the next image on top of that. So whereas like the stuff in JPEG XL is much more granular, where with AVIF you can usually get a render much sooner, and you're in control of what that render is.
Cool.
Interesting.
It's kind of new. I've been playing with it. I've had to land like patches into the encoder, and I'm hoping that they're going to release it like soon, because it works with existing decoders. But yeah, like you can just generate a blurry version. Like if your image is like 150K, like it's a really high detailed image, you can get like a blurry version where you can tell exactly what the image is in less than 10K.
And so AVIF is supported in all major browsers currently?
Yes. Whereas JPEG XL is only currently in Safari, and they don't support the progressive rendering thing, and they don't support animated JPEG XL, but animated JPEG XL is terrible, so no one ever should use it, because it's kind of like GIF in its compression ratio.
It's just better to ship a video if you want animation. Is that the move?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Man.
But yes, we'll see a JXL.
I didn't realize that video was also doing this. Like, does that mean that we would eventually maybe do away with having to like make 1,000 versions of a video and then like stream in like the M3U8 where you have like a 420 and a 720 and a 1080 and it kind of adapts?
I think the problem there is it's like you're still requesting a thing, like, and so I guess you could maybe have a format that had them all in one, but then the HTTP server is still going to have to split that all out into one.
Oh,
frame.
I see. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're right.
M3U8, it's like a playlist essentially. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, man, that's interesting. I had no idea AVIF was this well supported.
They're improving their algorithms. Like right now, I would say that the downfall of AVIF is like if you decide, right, I'm going to encode everything at quality 50, it will occasionally like make something look a bit over compressed. But they're about to ship a new algorithm for the quality setting, and it's actually based on some of the algorithms the JPEG XL people came up with, and it does improve stuff a lot there. It seems to come up with, it becomes much more consistent. I mean, it's great to see the competition there, right? Because we're getting better stuff thanks to competition.
Yeah, I want to ask about Firefox and like just like end user features versus like web features, because I often think about Firefox needing to get more people using it. And often you hear from web developers being like, well, they should be implementing this obscure thing. And I think like, yeah, of course, like it needs to be compatible. The web needs to work on this browser and whatnot. But like another huge part of that is like regular people using this browser just want the features. They want an AI chat tab, or they want it to translate their Chinese into English if they visit, like all of those. And like, when is that the same team working on Firefox of like end user features and web? No, it's totally like engine people are in a different room.
Yeah, and that's so people have sort of said like, and there's been mixed feedback at best to some of the like AI stuff that's landed in Firefox. But the complaint that people have made is like, why aren't these people working on like scroll-driven animations instead, or something? And it's like, well, it's not the same people anyway, right? It's not. That's not the way this is working. But yeah, and the end user features of Firefox, like if people want to send me like requests and stuff, they can. It's not the area I work in. I dipped into it very briefly because of the AI controls, the AI kill switch. It was originally sort of being floated as, and because I really wanted that to land right, and there was a lot of like internally we weren't sure what to do with translation, because we were like, is translation AI? Because no one knows what AI is, right?
Yeah.
It's just a term people throw around. And so we were like, if we put these controls in and it doesn't block translation, then people will say you're cheating, right? You're sneaking AI in because it's a machine learning local model. In Firefox, it's a local model that does the translation because it's like which is better for privacy, right?
Yeah.
But it's not sending the text off to a server. And so I ended up doing like a poll saying, right, we've got this translation feature. What do you think? Should this be blocked, by it? And people said yes, it should be blocked by it, but I want to be able to re-enable it. And that was useful for me because the initial mocks internally didn't have that second ability. They didn't have that ability to block everything but turn one thing back on. So yeah, but
that's good.
Especially on like the Fediverse, if you mention AI, people get really angry. So that I kind of retired from that pretty quickly.
Yeah, you just mention it, and people go nuts. I guess that's a good lead in to this whole prompt API business. So Chrome has been, I'll let you kind of really get into the details here, but Chrome has been pushing through what is this prompt API, and there's been some disagreement, so to say, in the GitHub issues and the comments, and basically their entire process for what is this prompt API. Can you give our audience a high level overview of what the heck is going on with this thing?
Yeah, so like Chrome has been looking at this API or developing this API since 2024, and I did a bit on a podcast, or one of my own podcasts at the time, about this API. And I wasn't at Google at the time; I was at Shopify, and we took a look at this API, and we were kind of like, oh, this doesn't feel great, I guess I wanted to say that because like all of the points that I've been pushing on recently are concerns I had in 2024, like pre Mozilla. So the prompt API is it's an API where you create a language model, you can give it a system prompt, and then you prompt it, and you get a response. And it's like down to the implementation, whether how it does that, like whether it gets the stuff from a cloud service or whether it gets it from a local model. Chrome uses a local model, and so when you first request it, it will download this 4 gigabyte model, and the user doesn't get like a permission request for that. That's something that a lot of people got angry about. I'm less. I can see their view on it. But there is nothing, if you visit a website, there's nothing stopping it downloading 4 gigabytes, right? That's a capability that we just give every website. A browser could step in, I guess.
Yeah, you Transformers JS, you can download a 4 gig model and run it right in your user's browser without any permissions.
Yeah. And you can store it locally. You can put it in the file system API or IndexedDB if it will cope. But there are ways of doing that. And Chrome will only take the disk space if there's plenty of disk space available, and it will, as far as I understand, purge it if it's not. But yeah, it gives you this LLM in the browser. The bit that we are worried about is like it is just a non-deterministic API in the browser, and we've had these before. We've got math.random, right? We've had non-determinism before. There's also the translation API, which we don't like the current API, the way the translation API is currently designed. But the idea of a translation API we're kind of warm to, even though it's sort of non-deterministic, but it's non-deterministic within a lane. There's a kind of whereas this is just like a black box you throw text at and get text back. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure, folks listening and you folks will know this, like when you work with an LLM, you design the system prompt around that particular model. Like you'll write a system prompt, which is what you want, like the behavior and the kind of things you want it to do. And then you'll test it and it will get some stuff wrong. And then you will change the system prompt accordingly. That's how you'll iterate. It's like, no, don't be like that, or be more like this, be less like this. But you're designing it around one model. And that's where we think this doesn't work for the web, because it means right now there's only one browser shipping this, but even if other browsers were shipping it, people will be designing around the most popular browser. Mm-hmm. So I guess to give you an example, I've got this me and my other half, we've got a pool table. We play pool quite a lot, and I created like a little thing, little home assistant thing, where when one of us wins, I have a language model which I keep. The system keeps the score, and it speaks out of a speaker, and it congratulates the winner and roasts the loser, and it's like that kind of thing.
That
and when I
rips,
first did this, like I would use OpenAI, and firstly it used a lot of Americanisms. And so I was like, because the speakers in my house are speaking with it's the Google speakers, so they're speaking with a British accent. And I was like, well, that sounds wrong. So I started like, all right, remember that this is a British voice that will be spoken out of. And then like the voice coming out was like, blimey, mateys, Jake's only gone and won a game. And I'm like, oh, what? Like, bloody hell, governor.
That's how you sound to us. Yeah.
That is a little bit how you sound to us. I'm sorry. Yeah.
So it was like more and more iteration, but I got it right. And then I switched to Gemini, kind of just because I was playing with it, and also because it was cheaper. And it started doing things like, it would say, oh, Jake potted the black and won the game. And it's like, wait, and that's not necessarily true. And it wasn't true when I first heard it. It's like, no, my partner potted the black in a foul, which means I won. So, and I only sort of noticed that because I switched the model. So then I had to go then and update the system prompt for this new model. Now that's because I was picking the model as the developer. Now that's not what's going to happen with the prompt API. The prompt API developer is writing the system prompt, but they do not know what is going to run it. And so the worry is like, even if a browser comes out with a better model, like it's a different model, but it's maybe wins on certain benchmarks versus the Google model, all of the system prompts out there will be designed for Google's. So users will perceive it as worse, even though it's better. And that's kind of, and you can ask these models what they are. And I think this is what a smart developer would do. You would say to the prompt, what are you? What model are you? And then branch your system prompt based on that. It's just user agent sniffing. Again.
Yeah, we're back to that now. Now Firefox is implementing hacks to make their model feel like WebKit model.
Well, that's the thing, is we would either have to like ship Google's model, which is everything just merging around a single engine, or we would have to try and find a model that has built-in system prompts that makes it Quirks compatible with Google's. It's a problem we already face just with web APIs in general, but just multiplied like exponentially. So But the other part that we're worried about, and actually this is the one that kind of gets to me the most, is if you look at the Google's docs for this prompt API, it says like, if you're going to use this API, you must first acknowledge our terms and conditions. And this is an open web API, right?
Right.
But it comes with terms and conditions that go beyond the law of the country you're in. These are just extra Google laws. And one of them is like, you can't facilitate misleading claims related to a government or democratic process. And it's sort of vague. So I guess to give you an example, like if you use the prompt API to summarize an article that says the 2020 US election was rigged against Donald Trump through like the manipulation of voting machines and ballots, that sort of thing. And if you also use the prompt API to summarize an article saying the 2020 US election was not rigged against Donald Trump. Now, in one of those cases, you are breaking the Google terms and conditions, depending on which side Google believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it becomes a Google API at this point. Yeah.
I feel that way as well with a lot of these. Like I'm doing a talk on like MCP UIs and MCP apps coming up. And there's a lot of people in this camp that are simply saying the browser is no more. We will simply be widgets that live inside of a chat. And then they have these slides come up where there's OpenAI and Anthropic and Google on one end, and the other end there's like Spotify, Airbnb, and whatever. And I'm just sitting there looking at that, being like, I don't want to live in that world. I don't want to have to pay to use the web. I don't want to live in a world where, like we saw it already with the Apple iPhone, where like the apps are sort of locked down to what you can do. There's lots of cases. And I don't know that I want this like governing body choosing what is able to do. And I know that they're not going to do crazy stuff, but they might.
Well, so I use AI in my coding, and like, I gave a conference talk recently, and I designed my slides in HTML, and I was using a bit of Claude, a bit of Copilot, and as I was working around, like I did something like, say width equals blah 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 blah, and I hit enter, and I realized like, oh, I'm now waiting for Copilot to do the height equals, because I've just become accustomed to that, and it didn't. And I was like, oh, what's going on here? And it was like, Copilot, are you okay? And it's like, okay, it's, everything seemed, go to the GitHub status page. Apparently everything fine. And then I realized that because my notes are also in there, and I had used the word fuck in my notes. And it turns out Copilot just gets all Perl clutchy and just
Copilot more than any of them, Wes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's the kind of, and it's like, well, Prettier doesn't do that. TypeScript autocomplete doesn't get all Perl clutchy on me. And so I do worry about that sort of stuff, that kind of like the neutrality kind of disappearing in this kind of stuff.
So what would a better prompt API look like in the eyes of Mozilla?
I think it has to be more of these things that are like, having these APIs which are powered by AI seems okay, as long as the scope of non-determinism is limited. Like, so I go back to the translation API. The current Google proposal, or the one they shipped for translation, is just text in, text out. And we had like a developer, I was kind of saying, well, we think this needs to work on DOM, not just text. And we had some developer come to us saying like, no, text is fine. I was like, okay, how are you using it? And they were just throwing HTML at it and getting HTML back and inner HTMLing that. And I was like, oh boy, that's that's a security. And I came up with some cases where you could give it stuff which didn't look like HTML, but when you translated it from Chinese to English, it created script tags.
Oh man.
so there's stuff like that. But I think a translation API could work, because people are like, it's something that browsers already have, and if an implementation wants to use AI to make it hopefully better, then I think that's okay. I think it's the free for all prompt API is. I mean, maybe if things settle a bit between the models in a couple of years, then maybe we were like, okay, so this issue where the models are going to be wildly different, it would be less of an issue, but we're definitely not there right now.
Yeah, I honestly think that I love this idea of like a browser shipping a model, because like I would love to just use the user's local model on their iPhone or whatever for many of these cases. I think that if it's free and fast, I think there's lots of great use cases for that. Obviously, you bring up good points as well, but like, I don't know that we know what this API should even look like just yet as well. Like, that's another thing, is like, let's not, I don't know if we should be pushing forward with some standard which nobody's going to use in 2 years because it's crappy and limited and doesn't do what we want to do. And then everybody just NPM installs something that's way better.
Yeah, it's possible. I would say that the API design of it is actually pretty good. So you can just do text in, text out.
Yeah.
But you can like give it example conversations and define the roles of those conversations. And it's sort of stuff that you can imagine sort of being still helpful if a completely different paradigm to like came about, like a completely different system. It doesn't say it's a large language model. I think it just calls itself a language model. And so you can imagine in the future, like, maybe that same API could be powered by something completely different under the hood. That part, but when I made noises about this in a couple of years ago, 2024, I was told that this was just going to exist as an API in Chrome extensions. And I was kind of like, yeah, fair play. That seems okay. Mm-hmm. It would be a good place for this stuff to be experimented with. The API's in a decent shape. Mm-hmm. But that's another thing that we like really objected to at Mozilla, is like the reason. So we objected, Mozilla objected, Microsoft objected. So Mozilla, WebKit, Microsoft, and then but the reason they gave for sort of plowing on is like the developer sentiment was strongly positive, but like they had a link to the evidence, and it was like a couple of social media posts, a GitHub thing where they were asking for feedback, and 2 people replied, but they also had a survey, and they weren't clear about who they surveyed or like what the numbers were, but like developers gave the prompt API an 8.0, presumably out of 10, but that was for the API existing in browser extensions, not as an open web API. So we were very like, this seems misrepresentative and misleading and that sort of stuff. So yeah, we were pretty unhappy about that.
On like a flip side though, do you not see, like, this is just a thought I have, but do you not think that there is a potential danger to the web right now if we don't have these APIs? Because if like you can't do this stuff in a web browser, then people get pushed into like using it right inside of ChatGPT and using in an app. And we saw that with native apps as well. It's just like not a lot of people built progressive web apps because there was all these limitations for so many years. And I'm worried that will happen to the web as well.
So I don't have numbers. So this is a made up fact, but people can judge.
Yeah.
Like I would say the usage of AI is predominantly through a browser. Like when people are chatting to ChatGPT, when they're using Google search and using it, like they're doing this through the browser, or even like in a native app, it's a web view, right? Like it's web tech.
Yeah.
And more to the point, it's not using a local model. It's using a model the developer can depend on. And when they want to upgrade the model, there will be a round of testing and tweaking the system prompt before they make that switch. On the public side. I don't see a lot of native apps using the, because on Android and iOS, like they give access to these local models, and they don't tend to get used very much. Certainly not by anything that's making big waves in the native app space.
Yeah. I'm just curious, like what it looks like. Like I see a lot of people pushing the web into the chat, right? A lot of our stuff is being pushed into AI versus adding AI to our apps. That's always the sort of catch 22. And I wonder, like what else would be possible if this was now in the browsers? If you could do free, private, hopefully fast, prompting in via web APIs. I wonder what new features would then come up.
Yeah, I guess what I would like to see then is like, could we have local models, but the developer selected, the user. There's some negotiation between the user and the developer on what models are available, what models the user is prepared to download and exist on disk. That would require there's a sort of fingerprinting danger, right? Because knowing what models are available might tell you where the user has been before. And we don't using 4 gigabytes per origin on this stuff is bad, right? But I think there might be a way through those issues, and that would sort of give us this standard. Or maybe even just in a couple of years, like I said, if the kind of difference between models settles down, then maybe that's a path forward as well.
I could see that as well, especially I don't know, if Apple finally gets on their horse with this stuff and ships a sick one in the next OS update, that covers a good chunk of it, and then Microsoft will probably ship something. That would be great. But
it's very telling that Google, if you're using Chrome on macOS, Google will still, Chrome will still download that 4 gigabyte model rather than go to the model that is right there already. So, I think even the folks at Chrome want some consistency for themselves, maybe not for everyone else.
For their own sake. That's a good point.
Can you speak on how Google is kind of pushing this through and how they tend to do that with some things that are not fully baked standards? What does that process look like? Is it just that they want this in there the way they want it, so they ship it, and then everybody else has to deal with that after the fact?
Yeah, it's really that. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's no coincidence that this thing shipped sort of fast and loose slightly before Google I/O, right?
Mm-hmm.
The slides will have been submitted for the conference that says they shipped it, and so they had to go ahead and do it. Well, they didn't have to. You know what I mean? That would have been the push, especially as Google's stock price depends on what they are and are not saying about AI. So yeah, I mean, the way they did it was just by going, git push, like release, and not really caring about what everyone else was saying, and sort of making spurious claims about developer sentiment. Yeah. So the best thing, the thing we can do about that is make a noise, like sort of challenge them about it, like tell developers, look what is being done in your name, right? They are saying you want this, and that's why they've done it. How do you feel about that? So that even though they are just sort of doing what they want for the company interest, at least make sure that people know that's what's happening.
I wonder about like other APIs. Like I know Wes, we talk about things like Web Bluetooth or Web MIDI, and those are two APIs that are both only in Chrome.
Yes, but we just shipped Web Serial.
Yeah.
So there is
Firefox did that. Oh, I didn't even see that.
Yeah. We just did, and I think there's a strong chance that we shipped Web MIDI a while ago, and I think there's a good chance that Web Bluetooth and Web USB will follow. We were against that for security reasons, but we feel like we heard a lot from our developer users. We have a strong community of tinkerers, and so we listened to their feedback on it, and we felt like we found a way that expressed to the user exactly what they were letting themselves in for. And so, we hope they're sort of like, reading those dialogues and, only accepting access to devices when they really want it. But a point that I've heard the Chrome folks come up with, which I think is actually valid, is that having this stuff in the browser is ultimately safer than having to install a native app for it. So like the few devices that I have which will do like firmware updates in the browser, I'm like, do you know what? I would rather that than have to download some app.
I use these like here, I got one right here. These little ESP32s, and I flash them all the time with just different little firmwares and whatever for Home Assistant. And like I used to have to download these like sketchy Java applets from Chinese websites to like do stuff, or it would only be Windows. And now you visit a website, you plug it in, you hold a button sometimes, and then it just flashes a microcontroller from the browser. Unbelievably good experience.
Yeah, I think that's good. And yeah, the Web Serial API can do that with the ESP32s. So that bit is now in Firefox.
That's sick. I didn't realize that. Do you think like Safari will ever? I know you don't work for Safari or whatever, but you maybe have a scoop into the standards process in Safari. Do you think that they'll ever ship this type of stuff, or like what's their hang up on these things?
They still surprise me every now and then. I was surprised when they shipped JPEG XL, for example. But I don't see this one landing in Safari. I think I don't think they have the same community of tinkerers that Firefox does. And I think they're kind of like, as a company, generally happy with native apps. So I'd love for them to surprise me on this, but I don't see it.
Yeah, that's the bummer. I mean, Web MIDI for me is, because I'm like a music guy, so Web MIDI for me is one of those ones where I'm just like, please, Safari, come on. But I know their stance on it, and yeah, it's frustrating to just kind of know that, like you said, they're happy with their native apps. Yeah, that's a bummer.
Firefox DevTools, fantastic. Just visually, they're the best. And also, like for many, many years, I was using Firefox DevTools because they were simply the best. I don't even know what my question is here, but like, is that a different team as well? Like, what's the thoughts on DevTools inside of Firefox?
No, so that team is much closer integrated with the. I mean, it's a different team, like it isn't certainly in Chrome as well. Can't speak for Safari, but like it's very closely integrated with the development of web features. Again, it's a small team. It's a very small team. So like it's just sort of constrained on resources more than Chrome's, I guess. But yeah, on that, like if there's any sort of DevTools things that people see that they think is less useful than it could be, or if there's something missing, then yeah, just throw them over to, I mean, you can either file it on Bugzilla, which is a bad user experience, or you can like send it to me on social media and I'll go through the bad user experience on your behalf. But yeah, I'm a big fan of it. I use like my sort of daily driver is Firefox Nightly, because playing around with sort of new features and the DevTools there. And I would say, like, if anyone listening sort of believes, like, is kind of wants to help the Firefox mission, I guess, is one thing you can do is run Nightly, and then sort of file any bugs you see. Firefox Nightly is so much more stable than Chrome Canary and WebKit Technical Preview, or Safari Technical Preview, and that's not a brag. That's just a kind of fact. Because I used to run Canary as my sort of daily, and you would go through like periods where it would just crash every tab, which I think is fine. It's a canary. It's a canary. Right?
I had to stop using it after all the web GPU
it's a canary,
stuff was in testing, so it kept crashing.
Exactly, and I think that's a perfectly valid way for a nightly browser to behave. But I just like Firefox Nightly does not do that. So like there's this kind of much more kind of like focus on stability. So that that's it's if you want to sort of be playing around with new features or sort of help by filing bugs, then that's something you can do, and you can largely run it as your daily driver.
That's better than like Firefox Developer Edition. I guess Nightly is updated more frequently.
Yeah, so there's we're still sort of figuring out what we want to do with Developer Edition. Developer Edition is beta.
Okay.
Now, it originally wasn't. It originally was closer to Nightly. They used to have another channel called Aurora, which is what Developer Edition was on. But it's now running beta, which is fine. But like I don't think we're getting anything useful out of Developer Edition right now, apart from it having a really cool icon.
It is cool.
Yeah, it does have a great icon.
I think there's a problem I have with it is like, I think developers, particularly web developers, are notable by not using an edition of a browser. Like, I've got like 5 or more browsers open right now, and that's because I'm a developer. So I think sometimes like a browser saying, "Well, the edition for developers," is like, no, you're not. Like all of them are.
Yeah.
that's because I'm a developer.
All of them are, right? Yeah. I'm curious about an Interop. You had mentioned we'd gone over some of the things, but you had mentioned one, heading offset as an API. I wanted to make sure we hit on that because I'd never heard of this. And then 2, I wanted to talk about some of the things in Interop that you're most excited about. So can you explain what this heading offset API is first, and then maybe tell us about what your favorite new Interop API
heading offset,
is?
we just landed in Firefox Nightly in the last few days, and it's something I have wanted for when did HTML5 come out? Like, because HTML5 sort of promised this feature but didn't deliver it.
2010,
wow.
2011.
So a long time ago. So heading offset lets you offset the level of all headings within the element. So it's an attribute. Heading offset 1. And that means all H1s in there become H2s. And like all H2s become H3s, whatever. And the reason I've always wanted this is like if you were dealing with, well, sort of way back when this use case first hit me, I was dealing with SSI includes in like Apache or whatever. And so it's like, well, what heading level do I use in my include? And it's like, well, I don't know. And then, maybe the include would be moved around the page, and suddenly now the headings within that include are now all wrong compared to what they were. A more modern version of that problem is Markdown, right? You'll have your Markdown converter like take the H1 headings in the Markdown and turn them into what? Like you'll have something maybe that offsets them in your build process. Whereas with this, what you can do is just say, well, just offset them by like when there's an H1 in the Markdown, just output an H1 in the HTML. Doesn't matter, because then when you put it in the page, you can have like a parent div or whatever, and you could say offset, because you'll know, like, just before that there's an H2, and you can say, right, offset all the headings in here by 2, and it will normalize it. And that's like, it just makes that sort of, and I guess as well as Markdown, it's components, right? A React component. What heading does a React component use?
Right.
And it's like, now it doesn't matter, because now the caller of it can wrap it in the thing, and like you just make sure whenever you use a heading, you put a div around all of the child content and offset the headings, and then you can just, in your component, start with H1, and everything will just work because the offsets are all there.
We need that in our own show notes as well. We had our show notes. We were using an H1 for like the title of the show, and then we parsed the markdown into our website, and the H1 is syntax. It's the title of the website. So we had to like offset them all and
H1.
Yeah.
Or even
So that's it. And so if you're just in that habit of offsetting everything, then it will just work. And if someone then goes and moves that include somewhere else where you're not having to then go into your markdown build system and correct the offset, because it will be like as part of your HTML. Yeah, and with it you get like a CSS selector for heading level. So rather than selecting the H1s, you can say, I want to select the level 1 headings or the level 2 headings. So it doesn't matter what tag they have. It will be what, in terms of what is exposed to it, like accessibility layers, that particular level, which is really nice. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. You asked about Interop, and now I'm just looking at the Interop site to remind myself. What am I going to say? I mean, I know cross-document view transitions are in there, so that's an easy one. But what I'm going to say, you see, what the thing I am really excited about, which didn't make it into Interop, is custom select, but we are working on it. But the things that were in Interop was anchor positioning and popovers, which are the building blocks for custom select. And so this is being part of the process of like deciding what features should have priority in Firefox. And when someone comes to me and says like, I really want text box trim, and someone else comes to me and says, I really want cross-document view transitions, one of the things I need to sort of like think about is, well, hang on, if we don't ship, if we're a bit later with cross-document view transitions, people can still ship a site. It just means those animations don't happen in Firefox. The experience isn't broken. Whereas if we don't ship text box trim, either the layout is going to look a bit bad in Firefox, or the developer is going to be angry that they can't use this lovely feature because Firefox is letting them down. So that's kind of where I'm thinking there. Like my heart is with view transitions, total bias there, but I look at popover and anchor positioning and think like those are the key ones. And we've already shipped both of those, which is nice.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things I liked most about the transition to the View Transitions API, is that simply by including it, you weren't breaking the experience for any site that didn't use it. And that's such a great way to be able to implement things and obviously like progressively enhance them as something that, we've been doing our whole careers.
It took me 5 years to persuade Chrome that was an important feature that should be shipped. And I was quite moody about it afterwards when we sort of like started shipping it in Canary, and all the developers were really excited about it. Well, a lot of developers were really excited about it. An email went round, and it was a very well-meaning email, but by that stage in my Google career, I was quite grumpy. Like the one said, it's like, well, we're so surprised by the developer reaction to this, and I was like, and I did reply, I was like, are you? Because I am not. Because I have been telling you for 5 years that this is what, Anyway, that's.
So does that mean
it did ship
everybody whining online about stuff like that? That does make it back to the browser vendors. Like I often think like anytime I post anything about like a new API, you get all these replies of people being like, "This API sucks." And I was like, "Where were you during like the standards process?" But like I guess like that stuff does eventually make it back to them.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because there's always some recency bias. Like someone will post like a cool demo or something, and then so you hear a lot of like we want that now, and we have to sort of filter that through, like, how much recency bias is there here? What would be the downside of us like dropping everything and working on that versus like shipping the other stuff we have planned for. But yeah, the whole part of sort of my role at Firefox is to be listening to that stuff. We're very careful with like avoiding mobs, I guess, because that can happen. So we have this GitHub repo called Developer Sentiment or something like that. He says, trying to find a doc where he might have written it. What is it called? Sort of like we've got a repo for like developer feedback. Let me look it up. Developer something. Oh, I'll get a link for it. Oh, developer signals. There we go. Right. So, and that's sort of somewhere it's got an issue for all of the web features which aren't across all browsers, and developers can go in and like, say what they think. And one of the before I started at Mozilla, they were just counting thumbs up on the issues, and that was something I didn't agree with, because it's very easy for Wes, someone like yourself, like to post on like social media.
Happens all the time.
Like, why isn't this feature supported? And then a bunch of people will go on and click.
I use that to my advantage all the time. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so do I, right? So I know, right? So one of the things I fought for is that like you can still do that. You can still do the thumbs up, but it's a lower signal. And whereas we're encouraging developers there to, we've given a little bit they can copy and paste, a little template, which is like 2 headings, like what I want to do with this feature and what I'm having to do in the meantime. And because, that seems like a nice balance, because it's, for cross-document view transitions, say, it's like, what do I want to do for this feature? Nice transitions between pages. I don't need to make an SPA to have them, blah, 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 blah. What am I having to do in the meantime? It's just like, well, just not have those animations in Firefox. And we might go, yeah, okay, well, compared to some of the other ones where people are saying, I'm having to include like a 300 kilobyte library to da-da-da, or like, all right, okay, that's more interesting. And we get a bit more information than just a thumbs up.
I got an API I would like to give a thumbs up here in this chat, which is, I'm sure you're aware, I actually saw you respond 4 months ago on a Mozilla bug thing, but just transition display with a allow discrete.
Well, so here's,
yes, please.
I put a poll out today, actually, where, because I had some discussion with the teams internally about like some recent priorities, because I felt like maybe they were sort of not quite right. And so this used to make me laugh. Like, we used to have project managers at Google who would say, like, no, the feature I'm championing is the most important, because I went onto Twitter and asked people, are you interested in this feature? And everyone replied yes. And it's like, right.
Yes.
I, as a developer, if you ask me if I want something, I'll say yes.
Give me them all.
This is of course. So one of the things here, I did a poll of like, which of these would you like first? Is it line clamp, margin trim, or animating display none? And so, Scott, I'm taking you as a vote for display none out of those, or what do you think?
Okay. I would vote for display none out of those, yes, because I have so many use cases for that, personally, whether that is drawers or modals or animations.
Yeah,
and,
I think that's reasonable. Like, so line clamp, like we already support WebKit line clamp, and it's quirky, right? It's trying to copy the WebKit behavior, which is quirky. So my view on that is like, well, but people are coping pretty well with that in most cases. And then you've got the animating display none, which is like, it solves a real problem. But then the downside is like, if Firefox doesn't support it, then maybe in Firefox the modal just disappears. Okay. And then margin trim, it's like, right, like working around the lack of margin trim is much harder, but then not a lot of people need it. So that's the kind of difficult bit, is it's getting that balance. But I think I agree with you that it's animating display none is the one I'm most excited about, and that seems to be what people are saying. Yeah,
well, to me that's a barrier for people who they reach for React when they could be reaching for, CSS.
So I fought for a part of that feature, the animating display none thing, and the people working on it got pretty annoyed because I think I came in pretty late. So what I wanted is that when the feature is animating, when the element is animating from block to none or whatever to none, during that animation, it is inert. And the reason for that is I wanted to avoid the problem a lot of people create when they hand roll this. And the problem they create when they hand roll it is that period of time where both things are on screen, or like you've hit OK on the modal and it closes, but it hasn't really closed because it's got to transition away. And then maybe what the user double clicks, and the code beneath it is not expecting the ability to double click because you've clicked the button and then the thing's gone. But if you don't correctly make it inert, then that becomes a possibility, and someone can just go and add one of those transitions, and then all of a sudden you've broken a lot of accessibility. You've broken these like edge cases in UX. So that was one of the changes I had sort of made to that feature. But it is also one of the reasons it's a little trickier to implement. Sorry.
See, for me, it's really easy to just say, "Ooh, I want this. Can I have this, please?" And then not have to think about any of all that stuff. So, thank you for.
I don't implement them, so I get to do the same. It's fine.
Have you? I know we're running out of time, but I'm curious to ask about HTML and Canvas. Have you been following any of that?
Yeah. So this is one where, look, I am exactly like Scott on this, where I'm like, I like this. Can we ship this right now, please? And I think. So we're a bit more split about it internally at Mozilla. Like there's a sort of worry that a lot of people are going to do bad things with this, or things that are going to like certainly give trouble on lower end devices.
I've done some unspeakable things already. I agree.
Yeah. So the developer years that goes into deciding how and when to upload an element or part of an element as a GPU texture, like years of developer hours have gone into that. And a lot of these people come from game dev, like with that experience to implement this in browsers. And with HTML and Canvas, we just give you the key to the castle on that and hope you get it right. And like, a couple of people, because I like the API player around. So the videos I do, the little feature videos I do, I build those in the browser, and it's HTML and Canvas that lets me like capture the frames and pipe it to the video encoder API.
Oh, cool.
So like I do like that API for that. But yeah, people were saying like, so does this mean like I can render a page faster because I can do it with web GPU or WebGL? And like, no, it's going to be slower. It's going to be slower because you're probably not as smart as the years of developer hours that have been spent in optimizing this stuff. And I'd like, no insult to them, because that's true of me as well. Like I'll just like throw textures at it and hope it works, But I do like it. Again, it's another thing that I pushed for when I was at Chrome, but was like unsuccessful there. So it's nice to see it. It's nice to see it being developed. I don't expect it to be something that lands quickly in Firefox, but it's one of those ones I'm happy that Chrome is pushing on it.
Cool.
And we've been like, even though we're slightly unsure about it as an API, like we've been like helping with the API design around it. So I did some research around like text selection. Like, is there a need for a new API around that? But it turns out you can just kind of transform the real element around. And even if you've got like an element on a sphere, mapped on a sphere, you can just keep transforming the underlying element, and text selection will work on a sphere, which is really nice. One of the changes we got into the API was that we ensured that the element goes through the normal rendering pipeline in the browser. So that V1 of it, you could just go like paint this element to this canvas in its current state. But that would be like a bit of a flip of the coin whether things like resize observers or intersection observers would run. So that was one of the things we fought for, is like a proper render loop for the API, which they've done. It's good. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it.
Awesome. All right, we're running up on an hour here. Let's move into the last section, which is sick picks and shameless plugs. I don't know if you came prepared as a sick pick or not. Did you?
Yeah, I've got some
ideas. All right, lay it on us.
Frantically wrote some down. Also, like it's a heat wave in the UK right now, so I the first thing I wrote is Japanese sun cream, because as the whitest man in any room, it's the best. Anything that has sort of aqua in the title.
Yeah, what's your go-to there?
So there's a couple of ones. There's a Nivea one, which I quite like. It tends to be a little cheaper. But then, yeah, there's another one called, what is it, like Boyer? Is it pronounced UV Aqua Rich something? Yeah,
yes.
Sun cream is such a nice.
I do have some of this. Yes.
You Brits have such nice words for everything. Sun cream. What do you call the windshield? Windscreen.
Yeah, the windscreen.
So
yeah,
nice. Yeah. The bonnet.
It is.
The bonnet.
The bonnet.
So
yes, the bonnet.
The other things I panic wrote down was like, I was just sort of looking around and I really like the game Trackmania, and it's really. Have you ever played it? I like go-karting, and I have never played a game that gives me as close to the feeling of go-karting as Trackmania does, because it has that sort of you know, the tracks are really short, and as soon as you mess up, you'll just press the reset button and go back to the start and try again. And so it has that kind of like Celeste or Super Meat Boy sort of feel to it, but in a car game. But what I decided to go with is Clues by Sam, which is daily game. I play it every day. It's been fun to see the guy develop it as well, like, and add new ideas. But it's of all of those daily games, it's the one I play most religiously, I guess.
Oh man. Folks, if you're not on Clues by Sam, I also do this one daily. This is the only one of these I do daily. Man, it really teaches you a thing or two about logic. You think you understand it, and then when you're first learning, especially, you're like, I clearly know this person is a criminal, or I clearly know this person is innocent, and then you click it, and you're like, what the hell? Like, what did I miss here? Man, it's a really great game.
If you play it after a few drinks, it really shows you how incapable you are. Like me and Remy Sharp, if you know Remy, inventor of the term polyfill. There you go.
Yeah.
But we tried we had a few drinks, and then we tried to solve one of them together, and just like it was like, no, we should probably go home. This is we are way more under the influence than we know.
Yeah, it's crazy how much of those that it's like really where you notice those types of things, right? Where your brain just clearly isn't working as expected. Man, yeah, Clues by Sam, great game. I would love to talk about that more, but I don't
really
think Wes...
games guy. Yeah, not into Pokemon,
Wes has time
all
for
that stuff.
Clues by Sam, yes.
That's cool.
Oh, yes.
All right,
yes.
last thing, shameless plugs. What would you like to plug to our audience? Where can we find you online, et cetera, et cetera?
I am like the Firefox web devs accounts, which I set up, which I do like these polls and stuff, and asking for feedback, and also post like videos about interesting standard stuff and things that have become recently baseline. So give those a follow. I'll include a link. I try and be unavoidable, so I am everywhere. There's like, you know, I'm YouTube, TikTok, Instagram for the video stuff, but then I post the video stuff elsewhere as well, like Blue Sky, Mastodon, X, Threads. I'm on Threads, and there's no one there.
Oh, I find the opposite. Whenever I go onto Threads, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of people here.
Really?
And
there's a lot of people there. They're just not reading my stuff. I think that's the problem.
No, every now and then I have something that like pops on Threads, which is very bizarre. Same with like Facebook as well. I've been posting my reels on Facebook recently because I didn't think there was anybody on Facebook, but there's lots of people on there. Like I posted one of my old reels and I got like almost 1 million views on it so far. So there's people there.
I am not in that ballpark. I am nowhere near 1 million views.
Well, neither am I. That's why I was surprised. Yeah, and you get paid for it too. Like some of them made a couple $100. Yeah, Facebook is huge now.
I gotta be posting on Facebook, Wes.
All right, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate all your time and insights. This was really fun, and we'll catch you later. Peace.